Hello, my name is Caitlin, and I will be informing you all on how different parts of the brain are affected when tobacco is in the mix. Nicotine is a hard drug to give up. It is just as hardcore as a drug like heroin. There are 1 billion tobacco users worldwide right now. I was one of those billion users. When I was in high school, I was peer pressured at multiple parties or football games to be using electric cigarettes, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. It's a very common thing right now. And I'm very happy to say that I'm 3 years clean from this terrible addictive drug. Within the past couple years, teens have been getting more and more addicted to this. Like I mentioned, e-cigarettes are becoming the thing now. Kids think it's cool, or they're being peer pressured into it by older people. They're used to their family members doing it, and it's all around us. There are 480,000 people that die each year from tobacco use. If you or someone you know needs any help, all you have to do is reach out. There are many resources all over the internet. Tobacco is highly dangerous to the human brain, and let me teach you how. Let's start off with just talking about what tobacco is. Tobacco is a plant that is developed for its leaves. These leaves are then dried and aged after time. This is when it is then put in tobacco products like cigarettes. Tobacco contains a drug called nicotine. This is a fixing that can prompt compulsion. There are additionally numerous other possible destructive synthetic concoctions formed in tobacco. The first part of the brain that we're going to speak about today is the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe has a lot to do with your speech and language production, some of your motor skills, your own personality, and attention. This drug, tobacco, changes a person's emotions, personalities, and even their values. All they're concerned about is getting their next fix. In the frontal lobe, it is not fully developed between the ages of 15 to 22. So at 22, it is fully developed, but in between there, it is not. So a lot of these young users, like I was, are really being affected from this drug. Let's now go ahead and talk about the parietal lobe. This lobe in the brain has a lot to do with cognition, info processing, moving, visual perception, and even your reading and writing skills. Tobacco completely distorts a person's sensory ability and all of their fine motor skills. And I just want to mention, not all of this happens right away. So you could say, well, I used to smoke tobacco, or I smoke tobacco now, or even you know someone that does, and it doesn't seem to affect them now. But all of these things are just building up, and later down the road, they may see a lot of causes that I'm going to be speaking about today. Next, the occipital lobe. This has a lot to do with your visual perception, color recognition, reading comprehension, depth perception, and even recognition of object movement. So tobacco enters this and causes altered vision and perception of color, like I had mentioned. And just imagine, you're smoking cigarettes, you think it's fine, you don't think it's an issue, but then later down the road, colors just aren't looking the same to you. Well, this could be because you're a tobacco user. And tobacco even affects the occipital lobe by changing a person's ability to concentrate. They're just constantly thinking about their next fix and when they're going to get to smoke again. Moving on to the temporal lobe. This has everything to do with listening, filling in words if you just are getting a snippet. Like if you're listening to the news and you can't really hear everything they're saying because they're going so fast, but your brain's able to fill in all of the missing parts. It's like matching puzzle pieces. But when you're on tobacco, it just is way harder for a person. It makes you have complete loss of memory, and you only have one thing on your mind, tobacco, which is why your memory is affected. It's not that you're not smart anymore or that you aren't able to think, it's that your brain is only thinking about tobacco. Next, we're going to talk about the brainstem. The brainstem sends messages to the brain and the entire rest of your body. There are 3 parts of the brainstem. the midbrain, the pons, and the medulla oblongata, which all can help with basic body functions. This is breathing, blood pressure, temperature, blood sugar, heart rate, all of it. And let's talk about breathing. I'm sure that's the most common thing you've heard of. That your lungs are not able to get enough oxygen when you're smoking. Well, this is the main thing, but there's also other things. Smoking with the brainstem can cause anxiety because you're constantly concerned about your next fix. It just changes everything for you. It also can create a really high or low blood pressure, low or high blood sugar, and the speed of your heart could increase or decrease too. It just differs from person to person, but it does have a lot of long-term effects on your body. Next, cerebellum. This retrieves info that has to do with motor movements. There's loss of white matter, and essentially it's breaking down this part of your brain. Next, the prefrontal cortex. This is one of the last brain areas to mature. It's cognitive functions. Tobacco alters all of this. It creates dopamine and glutamate and receptor signaling. So the receptors that are in your brain aren't signaling wherever they should be. The biggest thing is the reward pathway. This is the ventral tegmental zone, the nucleus accumbens, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. Craving the drug becomes triggered into dopamine. It is released, which creates the good feeling of tobacco. This is just making you want it more and more. It kills brain cells, memory loss, ability to learn, and further. Clearly, I have taught you how dangerous tobacco is and why you should not be taking it on a day-to-day basis. In all, I have shown you how the brain is supposed to work and what happens when tobacco is in the mix. I hope I have been able to spark your attention and strengthen your knowledge on what this does to your brain. Now that you all know not to use tobacco, make sure to help the next person. There are tons of people around you every day using this. Be safe and save lives.